friends. Welcome back to the messy land of Rocky Outcrop Tezos charts. We'll just get rid of all the mess. Thanks very much. Welcome to the jungle again as well, as I've been saying with these plants around me. Hope you're all doing really well out there. Thanks for joining me in the show here today, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Rocky Outcrop. I do daily crypto technical analysis. Pardon me. And I would really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button and decided to tune in for daily crypto technical analysis. It'd be great, help grow the channel, all that jazz. So where have we come to so far? I mean, just looking to the left here before we look at any of the drawings and everything else. Looking to the left, you've got this high that we've come in here at the sort of 3,150 area, and looking over here, this was clearly a little bit of a pivot inflection point in the market just on the way down. You could have said this is sort of head and shoulder type idea or some sort of some sort of idea along those lines anyway in terms of psychology of it, and yes, well, that was where that is. Looking back to the left, you can see this is where we found resistance. This is where we found support at a certain point in time in the past. Then looking even further left, sort of resistance here, clearly again and around this price action and inflection point, and then it tends to form if you wanted to sort of shove these into the psychological brackets of shoulder head shoulder head shoulder type idea. Now that's not how that works, but just in terms of the sort of the shapes and the sort of relationship to each other of these different highs and lows, then that's the prices that we find ourselves at. So I think this is fair to say that this is a significant enough inflection point in the market. Let's bring all the noise back on and see if there's any sort of numbers or anything else that can give us an insight into why that might be at all. And if we look up here, then we can see there's a 50% retrace area on this particular Fibonacci retracement, which is coming right in there at that 3,190 area where we wicked up as high as overall. And that's not too much of a surprise. Now, then where the prices currently are right now is the 236 Fibonacci here area at 3,062, right bang on there at the 236, being supported, so to speak, by the 50 simple moving average here, right at this area. So of course, having come up as high as this and then coming back down again, you want to see the prices remain where they are now and not go any lower. If they do go lower, then lo and behold, looking at that at the 3,030 level where we've come down to today as part of this, you want to see them be supported by the previous downward sloping element of this trend line. Now, of course, these things are subjective. It doesn't really matter where you have it in at overall. It's just the concept there, and you could really just sum it up and saying you want to be above 3,000 really is a sort of an easier way of looking at that. But this descending broadening wedge, which was a continuation pattern, which had a measured move from it, which was here's the measured move, and it came up here. And again, I've been saying this in all the videos. The textbooks call these things minimum measured moves. We talk about them on the channel as maximum measured moves, just a way of the difference essentially between an analyst and a trader. And if you were to be thinking about this in terms of maximum, then you would have known to take your profit in at these levels. I'm not a financial advisor, none of it's financial advice, but it speaks for itself, doesn't it? And then perhaps you come back in for a retest of this area thereafter, which is what's happened. Then perhaps maybe we'll see the prices move back above the 236, which is also the inflection area on the market, like we spoke about, where then we didn't have any drawings on here and stuff like that. We're talking about the this general area, generally speaking, that between this in this zone as being as really kind of what I'm getting at there. And yeah, so that's kind of where we find ourselves just now. I want to see the prices move up above that 3,200 associated numbers, that we can continue this upward highs and low, higher highs and higher lows. If we did want to consider this to be the low, then the high, then the low, and then this is the high, we can look at the oscillators for divergence. So this high versus the previous high in this area. Well, the stochastics has the divergence, the DMI has the divergence on the DM positive here, and the RSI itself doesn't. Suppose that's 2 to 1 in a sense, but the RSI being having a trending, more of a sort of looking at trends kind of aspect to it in a sense, is maybe makes it so that it's kind of equal and that everything's kind of okay in that sense. We could see us coming down though and setting in at a higher low. If we did, then areas to look out for, of course, the 3,000, where it's no coincidence really overall at this point, sort of stage in the game, that 21 moving average is coming in at around about there. And then of course you want to see the prices stay above 2,900 for a close at any rate, so that we can have that actually be a higher low instead of just more sort of more broadening above another broadening structure, which is, we don't want to see that right now. Instead, we'd rather see things actually trend or begin to or continue to trend, because they have been so far. So let's see if that can continue. That's really what we're looking at in terms of this. See a drop off between where we are now and where we've been in terms of the VPVR. not much of a coincidence, you know, not really. And that's where that big node comes in at. And this is the biggest node here on the VPVR. So I think this all ties together now. Finishing off with the VPVR chat, since this is the biggest node here, if we put all the price action on, going all the way back in for the entire history of this chart, that's where the biggest node comes right in at. So it's no surprise to see that there be a lot of questions asked about there. And well, and I think then at that point it's fair enough for me to say, well, let's just wait and see how it pans out, getting past this area or not. Now, dollar prices. So let's just look first off at the difference between the exchanges. Hit BTC at 274, the other one's at 297. Fair enough. Okay, we're still living that $3 dream. You know, we've got it in mind. We were up here before just at $3.05. We've pulled back a little bit subsequently, a little bit of just a little bit of a turnaround in the prices there. That's okay, given that we came in and set in a higher high as part of this overall upward trend. Looking back from the 11th of May up until where we are now on the 4th of June, that sort of almost month-long upward trend so far, which has got one low, one high, two lows, two highs, so two lows and highs so far on this little section here. And comparing it back the way, you know, it isn't divergent overall on these oscillators overall, just, you know, it is on DMI. Just it is actually. The stochastics isn't and the RSI isn't. So okay, fair enough. If you look a little bit further back in time, there is the divergence back here, but you know, we're above that price action now. Let's see if we can actually sort of kind of undo this in the bigger sort of frame picture by moving up above $3.18. You can see that we've had this the biggest node here in terms of this chart, just to kind of link that again with the Bitcoin one, is actually below us now. So we've moved up above it, coming back down a little bit. If we need to see a sort of higher low coming in again after having done this previous higher high, fair enough. Ideally, that could come in at around about 281 should it need to, so that we can just kind of maintain this stair-stepping structure, being supported by the 21 and not going back down below this VPVR node. I would expect there to be a degree of extra sort of interest in the prices at that should we come down to there and hopefully turn around. I wouldn't want to see it go down below it again. Big drop-offs down here, you know, you can see moves down the way. We can always keep an eye out for little concepts, like if this turns to a shoulder and that turns to a head, and say we come in, we put in a higher low here, but then come up and make a lower high thereafter, then come back down to the previous area again. When you consider the amount of, you know, the liquidity in this area and the amount of people that are be looking at this and trading it in here, and should it then break down below that again, having had, you know, tested it sort of once, twice, three times at that point, and then broken down below, then you'd be looking at head and shoulders, yada yada yada, taking it down to 230s, potentially 215 again. But we don't need to think about that just yet. That's all getting ahead of ourselves. Really, absolutely is just getting ahead of ourselves. We've got this little line here to say, hey, look, this is what we need to see the prices go above 299 or just a couple of cents below that at the minute. So we don't need to get carried away about anything overall. But this is the sort of the fake out territory from breaking out of this area. You can have a measured move of the channel here, which could take you up as high as, you know, the 335 area. If I borrow this and just use it for the symmetrical type triangle aspect, just in this area here, for instance, and say this would be our maximum measured move overall, then we kind of did that. If I just zoom on in and let the wicks speak for themselves next to this. Come on, just move. No, just move this one. All right, okay, wants to be there. So we can see that we've kind of done that in terms of the minimum measured move. So that's fair enough in terms of just the immediacy, having come up here and then turn around after that point. Want to see them being supported by the 290 and this area here, you know, this upward sloping area. If we had to drop down to the 280 area, okay, fair enough. But this generally speaking in that, and that's it. I mean, that's really it. That's going to do us. Actually, no, let's just go over to the Ethereum charts and see how we're still getting on here. Well, we had a bit of a turnaround here. We've now actually sort of slackened off slightly. The volume's gone back down again. Overall, it was, you know, this chunk of volume is definitely better than the previous chunks here. Let's see in terms of the oscillators, this low here and this low here. That's not bullishly divergent, is it? No, it's not. Is this one bullishly divergent? No, it's not. So we don't have that just yet here on the daily time frame. I can't remember what I was saying before about the weekly time frame and everything else. But I'm pretty sure there's something along those lines. But anyway, we're still doing okay. Do want to see the prices coming up above that sort of 0.012619. So let's just call it 0.012. 127 or 126 or whatever area, and opening and closing above there, so that we can start to think that we're maybe going to go in and put in another like a higher high in after this little trend here. Overall, as you can see on the weekly time frame, that we managed to avoid having a lower low come in here just over the last week. And that's good to see. So let's just keep an eye out for this. We'll just keep checking in on this from time to time, really. We don't need to analyze this too much. I don't think very many people are trading it. I think it's only really available on Kraken and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter. I think this is more conceptually, how are we doing versus like a coin which is largely similar to the Tezos one. Obviously a couple of years further down the road than it and whatnot. So yeah, okay, cool. That'll do for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to share this video with a friend if you've got one that you think would like it. I'd really appreciate that. I'll catch you in the next episode. I've been Rocky Outcrop. I do daily technical analysis for this and numerous other coins and all the rest of it. So just, hit that bell, hit that subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll catch you in the next episode. I'm going to go and read a message that got sent by an old friend I've not spoken to in a couple of years. It came up at the very start of the Bitcoin message, made me smile, and I feel like perhaps there's a karma, sort of good karma outcome from that for me. That's always nice to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I hope it's some nice news or something like that. Maybe something like he's had a baby or something. That'd be really nice. And yeah, and that's kind of nice because I keep putting out this nice good karma into the world and saying, friend of yours is a friend of mine. It's always good to have more friends. So it's good that it's good to have that. I feel like I feel like that's a nice thing, right? Okay, cool. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next episode. Oh, and I apologize for speaking too quickly, but here we are. Such is life. Catch you next time.